Chris Baio is my co-host for the next couple of hours. He's introducing us to tracks from his awesome new album, The Names, which is out today, and talking about the making of that LP as well. But Chris, I mean, this is your first full-length album, but not your first release as a solo artist, right?
Yeah, I put out two EPs and a single. So the first one was called Sunburn that came out on Greco-Roman, which is a really cool label based out of London that three guys run, one being Joe from Hot Chip. And then I put a second one out on Future Classic, which is a great Australian label. And then I put a single out on Modular. They have a dance label called Club Mod last year. And all the while, I was feeling very shy, I guess, about my own voice, about my own vocals. I think it's a hard thing, and one of the hardest things for me in making the record was self-producing vocals, because to get a really good vocal performance that I'm happy with is something that I'd never done in whatever my 29 years of making music. So that was a lot of what came together last summer in London.
So tell me, what kind of obstacles, Chris, did you have to overcome to begin to see yourself as a singer of your own songs?
It's a confidence thing, definitely, and sort of a realization that it's going to be bad before it's good. So you just work through the badness until you get to something good. And I went through a kind of a similar journey just making my first tracks 3 years ago. But getting to work with someone having someone's opinion about how to sing certain parts, sing certain melodies, I found that I would feel maybe a little bit emotionally raw after recording vocals. So I would go for a walk while the engineer John Foyle, this incredible guy, would do the vocal comp. And then I'd come back with fresh ears 2 or 3 hours later. I guess the way that I would the thing I compare it to is I find if someone takes a picture of me and shows me that picture right after, I'm like, oh my God, I look disgusting, because it's just too close, too emotional. But if you look at that same picture 2 years later, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's, what I look like then. That's cool. That's fine. Yeah, that makes sense.
I knew that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So with recording vocals, it's kind of the same thing. There was a month where I took off and then kind of went back to it and listened to it, and then you can be really ruthless about getting the best vocal take. So I think I would recommend taking breaks over the course of working on an album. It was very helpful for me.
One of my favorite tracks on the album is the song Needs. But Chris, what's up? It sounds like you're kind of singing with a little bit of an English accent. What's up with that?
See, I'm trying to figure this out. This is an example of something I was thinking about while making this record. There are certain sounds that you just kind of have to sing Britishly.
Right.
Like an R sound at the end of a word, like the word start.
Right.
I tend to and this is just listening to myself sing now and talk for working on this record, I tend to chew my R's pretty hard, and you don't want to dwell on an R.
Yes.
So you tend to say start.
Start, right.
It could either be Australian, Boston, or British, but there are just certain syllables that sound really British and certain syllables that sound really American. I remember, I feel like being 10 years old and listening to Sting 10 Summoner's Tales or something in the family car and being like, oh, he sounds kind of American when he sings. I can't believe he's British.
Yeah. Totally. Elton John too. It's just when I found out Elton John was English, I was like, what?
Yeah, I think it's part of it's singing. I don't know. It's interesting though. And multiple people have said that to me, and I don't mind. It's not.
I'm not. This is not a criticism on my part
at all. I love talking about this because it's something I've been thinking about and haven't really talked to anyone about. But yeah, it's kind of, in terms of getting a good vocal performance, it's really about what will be best for the song that's been written. So if you listen to early 70s Rolling Stones and Mick Jagger's putting on a fake, Southern American accent, that sounds fucking cool in those songs. So if it's quasi-British, that's just kind of what I thought sounded best for how I'd sing that at the time. It's
totally. And so tell me though, more generally speaking about that song, that Needs, what was the sort of the genesis of that tune?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't necessarily... it really just came together, woke up one morning, it was in maybe November 2013, and living in London, one thing that I didn't realize, even though, I've gotten to play there so much over the last 8 years, the winter, the sun is down so fucking early, so much earlier than in New York, that it can be kind of pitch black at around 3:45 by December. So there were just these days where I'd get up and like I would sleep in a little bit and then basically have like an hour or two of sunlight before like it was pitch black again. But I just sort of started with a chord progression on my piano that I thought was really pretty, and just kind of had the whole thing come together instrumentally very quickly. I think I probably like over 2 days just sort of wrote all the parts, and I kind of just wanted to write. The first half of the record's fairly dark in terms of a lot of the lyrical content, and I wanted to write something that was sort of a song about an unconditional love. And that's sort of like, you know, I wrote this record thinking of two sides and kind of starting in more of a dark place and ending in a lighter place. And that's kind of a transitional song, like between the sort of darker opening tracks and lighter end tracks. So I would really like just have that. I feel like I did that right before we did our UK tour. So I was in Europe that whole time and literally just would go for a run or whatever, listen to that instrumental and just try and come up with melodies and lyrics. And just, I guess what I was thinking there lyrically, there's something kind of like pure about the idea of a lyric that like a teenager would write in another teenager's yearbook or something. Maybe it sounds a little weird to say that as a 30-year-old man, but like the line, "I promise that I'll never lie to you except when you make me promise to, you've got your needs." That's kind of just an unconditional love. I mean, it's maybe a little bit dumb, but it also, I like the way it sounds. I think it's catchy, and it's a little bit sort of something that you could see having been in another song at some point. So it's, I guess that would be the way I describe that.
So, Chris, we talked earlier a little bit about just kind of the act of singing your own songs. But, I mean, you know, obviously being a frontman is a whole kind of thing unto itself. Obviously, you've done a whole bunch of DJ gigs as Baio over the years, but was there an adjustment to actually being kind of the frontman and the center stage performer of your songs as well?
I think so, definitely. I understand why a lot of electronic producers kind of deal in anonymity, and there's something very appealing to that. It almost seems like, at this point, like the most natural way to present yourself is like, oh, who is this person making these weird, unnatural sounds that like adds a level of intrigue when you're first coming out. For me, the idea of like being the bass player in a popular band and like suddenly being like, oh, who is this guy making these tracks? And then revealing that it was, oh, this guy in a band that people already know. There was something that struck me as being unnatural, kind of not how I am, and maybe a little bit corny. I think a lot of other people do very, very cool stuff with that. But so I guess I tend to watch a lot of like electronic music online. I love watching Boiler Room. I love watching like DJ streams, and some people can do electronic music live like a great frontman. There's this guy, Kink, who's one of my favorite producers. And when you watch him on Boiler Room, it's like, I don't know, it's like quasi Mick Jagger of techno. Like he's just going crazy and like really involving the audience. And it's just so cool. So I think there are ways you can have personality and do like all instrumental music in a way that I really love. I guess for me, I really am trying to just go for it. Like, this is a record that I've been thinking about for so long and working on for such a long time. And I guess going back a little bit to what we were talking about, since I produced it and I played everything on it, I'm like so secure in the record. It's a record, it's weird to say this, but it's a record that I love. And it's been done now for almost a year, basically, in terms of the recording, and I wouldn't change a single thing on it. So my relationship to this record is very pure, and there's like nothing in the world that can change the way that I feel. Like you could say anything about about the record, and it really wouldn't change the way I feel about it. So that kind of gives me a confidence to maybe be a little bit more front and center in how I'm presenting it. So I mean, there are still things like shooting a Sister of Pearl video where I was dancing in London and like the playback was just playing off my phone in my breast pocket and like dancing in kind of a crowded street in central London, and no one else can hear the music, I probably felt a little awkward and weird than like playing on stage. But I've always loved dancing, and it's so fun. As long as the music's loud, I don't really, it's like it's more fun that way. It's I would be bored if I played and just stood still the whole time. The like physicality of performance makes it more fun for me. So maybe it's a little bit selfish.
Selfish schmelfish. Sister of Pearl has been a song that we've really loved here on XMU in recent weeks. What can you tell me about sort of the genesis of that song, Chris?
I recorded most of it last summer working in the studio in XL's London office. And there was a guitar laying around, and I picked up the guitar and just put it on the track. It was one of the few songs on my album with guitar. About a week later, the studio manager came in and said to John, the engineer I was working with, "Hey, have you seen Adele's guitar?" And it turned out that inadvertently I played Adele's guitar on my song Sister of Pearl. So I wanted to write featuring Adele's guitar in parentheses after the title, but my legal team advised me against it, so it's just called Sister of Pearl.
Frickin' legal team. Well, hey, now we know, right? And in our minds, it will always be called Sister of Pearl, parentheses, featuring Adele's guitar. Chris, what is your setup like for the live show? How many people do you have playing with you and so forth?
I'm gonna tour with a guitar player, kind of present it fairly electronically, but then when I'm singing, walk to the front of the stage like a more traditional frontman. And for me, that's the reward. Like after you've worked on an album, getting to play it live and share something that's been in your head for a long time, that's where the fun is. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Totally. Well, thanks so much, man, for stopping in to hang with me here on XMU. I'm Jenny Eliscu. Chris Baio has been my co-host these past couple of hours. And check his website to see if he's got a show coming up near you. His new album, The Names, is out now.